This is my second episode of our Patreon Sketchy Talk. And today I have my longtime friend, Pat Ann, or Patricia Ann Lewis-MacDougall, on today to talk about sketching. And we have talked about sketching and art for many years. Do we even want to say how many years? Because that makes us sound like we're like older than 20 something.
Since the 90s.
Wow, that is a long time. That is a very long time.
It is.
And you are a master sketcher, keeping sketchbooks, and you were just saying you sketch on everything.
Yeah, I do sketch on everything. I'm now starting to sketch on canvas, and I'm
interesting. What made you start doing that?
Well, my friend Harry, who owns the Rotary store here in Ontario, gave me a rotary satchel. It was all just that beautiful heavy canvas, like sailboat canvas, and I started drawing on it, and it really took pencil very, very well. And then so I got the Inktense pencils. Now I'm going to paint them in. So I just basically sketch what's on my mind on heavy, like linen or whatever, and then just color it in with the Inktense pencils or acrylic inks, and
Nice.
It's beautifully.
So you started out in animation. Tell us a little bit, and that of course is very sketch heavy. So give us sort of a little bio in a nutshell. It doesn't have to be that small, but kind of start your journey. You decided to go into animation at Sheridan, which is also where you met Larry.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your love for animation and what made you go with that direction.
Yeah, when I was in high school, I didn't want to be an animator. I wanted to be a cetaceanologist. I wanted to study dolphins and toothed whales. But I also had a huge love for animation, for Disney and for anime. And back then, anime wasn't Studio Ghibli, even though Nausicaa came out. But it was, I just had like Bugs Bunny, Warner Brothers and Disney and all that stuff. And what happened was I got sick and I couldn't get my senior years. Like we had grade 13 here in Ontario. So I had to drop out of grade 13. So I graduated from grade 12. So instead of going to university, I heard about Sheridan's animation program. So I went to see what that's about, and I threw a portfolio together and had my portfolio looked over by the professors at Sheridan College, and they just said, "Hey, you want to come in? You're in." And that's how it all started. So they said I was great for animation right off the bat. And yeah, that's how I started animation, and I just fell madly in love with it. I ate, slept, drank animation.
Mm-hmm.
And once I graduated with that, I went back to Sheridan for illustration, and that's where I met Larry.
Oh, wow. So did you get a dual degree, or was it sort of like an associate program afterwards?
No, it was a dual degree.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Well, actually, in between illustration and animation, I went to McMaster University night school program for art appreciation. And that's when I realized I would like to go back for illustration. That's when I discovered the Edwardian illustrators, the golden illustrators.
Rackham and Dulac and
and and I said, oh God, I got to go back.
File.
That's how it went.
Amazing. Yes. And so after that, you worked at, did you go to Nelvana after that, or?
Yeah, I was hired to work at Nelvana while I was still in third year illustration. So I didn't graduate from illustration. They wanted me right away.
Shh.
And
kidding.
So I became a storyboard artist. I started off as a cleanup artist with them, and then I became a storyboard artist for about 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
And
amazing. And that teaches you really, when you're doing storyboarding, you learn how to capture a story and how to sketch fast. And I mean, that's one of my big things is I love the idea of capturing an idea very quickly.
absolutely. You teach storyboarding, don't you?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I recommend every illustrator to take a storyboarding course. Like even if it's just a small one through Skillshare, or fly to Kentucky and take one from you. Um, I really recommend it. The thing is, you get it's almost like a second nature for thumbnailing and composition and layout, and you get an idea how it's just automatically how a book will how it's properly laid out, so that you can basically see your vision in your head, and then put it on paper rather than like skipping that step, which can be a little frustrating after a while if you don't have that quick visualization first. Like, and it doesn't have to be a perfect drawing. It can just look like stick people. But as
Oh
long as
yeah, it's capturing the energy, the story.
you get the energy down, that's the main reason for storyboarding, is to get that energy down. And that's why not only do film people do it, but you see, like when I got this through you. When I took those that giftware court job in China that you actually get, storyboarding a whole theme. Like that's what they call it. They call it storyboarding a theme of giftware. Storyboarding is vital in illustration, not just in film. It's a really strong asset to have in your arsenal of art theory.
Yeah, it's actually my favorite part of any kind of book or comic. Whenever I thumbnail it, that's my favorite part because that's the initial storytelling. And there's just something vital about it that's really exciting. Like after you figure all that out, then the rest is just execution. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but my favorite part is the initial part, coming up with the ideas and figuring out how will this be depicted and what are the camera angles and what are the settings and that sort of thing is the most fun, I think, when doing this type of thing. And you're right, with product lines or anything, you're sort of setting the pace and telling the story of it.
Yeah. And if you look, if you go to even just an ordinary gift shop and you look at like little segments of product, like you see there's a theme going on. It's a story. And yeah, I know, like now, I guess if people have watched that TV show, We Crashed, they talk about how this whole concept of story has gone overblown, but it all started in book. It all started in film. So
Well,
it will always be there.
oh yes, totally.
It'll always be, it'll never go. So it's extremely important to have that, under your belt. So
Tell me about your sketchbooks. Like, is it a way that you come up with personal stories, or is it just whatever your flight of fancy is? I think you're kind of like me and do a lot of sort of stream of consciousness stuff and just start doodling things.
Yeah, it is a stream of consciousness and doodling. Sometimes I will excuse me, my cat is trying to dig out a toy, but she's doing it in the most destructive way. Anyway,
That's cats. Well, you could see cats behind me. Sorry, people, you can't see everything,
yeah,
but
cats are
she's been getting to a cat show while we've been talking.
Christina's cats are very behaved.
Well, that's only the slice you see.
but anyway, yeah, it is a stream of consciousness, and I'll just basically start doodling. And usually this is funny, usually what I'll start is I'll doodle a couple of birds. That's if you look at my sketchbooks, you usually start seeing little birds in the corner, and next thing you know, it just goes to sheer madness. It's everything from motorcycles to not well drawn motorcycles, mind you, but to naked women, to owls, to fish, maybe a couple of weird looking plants, maybe an airplane. It's just basically anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have more structured sketchbooks as well, like still life or life drawing sketchbooks. And then I have my journals that have doodles in them as well. So when I do my journalism, I will sometimes, in order to get my thought out a little, because I'm very visual, I will actually doodle my what I'm trying to say as well as write. And thank God for those journals now that just have the dots rather than the
Yes.
because now my journals look good. So
So how do you keep sort of a diary, and how long have you kept one?
I haven't kept a diary all that long. Only for about, I would say, a decade now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got really sick a wee while, like about a decade ago, and I was hospitalized, and I had to realize, that's when I realized, I'm not going to live forever. Like, you can't put anything off anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's, and that's when I decided I better start doing, like, at the very least, journals my thoughts out, to get them out there, and not so that they're not forgotten, and I'm not going to, like, slip up. So when I go back in my journal, I think, oh yeah, that was a good idea. Maybe I should do something about that, and oh, I felt like that on that day, or I'm thankful for that thing that happened. Maybe I should, express something like that either in a next art gig, or it's something personal or whatever. So I find journaling extremely helpful.
Mm-hmm. It kind of tells you what your mindset is. I mean, there's a lot of people, their sketchbooks are more writing than sketches, really.
True.
And there is no right or wrong way, but it's a great way to kind of talk things out. It's cheaper than a therapist.
It is cheaper than a therapist. Because if you're feeling really crappy that day, just go through your journals. You're going to find a day that you were like, oh, this happened that day. Oh yeah. And that happened to me. It didn't happen to somebody else. This happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that just came, so it gives you that little bit of a boost to keep going. So if you're having a real down day, and I don't know a single person who has perfect days. So
No, everybody has bad days.
everybody
That's
has
all part of
the roller coaster.
Exactly. It's sort of, I mean, it's been a weird past couple of years for sure.
Definitely.
But even on top of that, there's always something going on. And maybe that's there as a challenge to you, but being able to sketch about it and think about it, I think helps a lot. Do you also sketch your dreams ever, or
Oh, God, yes.
only
I
your clean one? No.
on Facebook too. Oh yeah. I actually, even though I don't have my sketchbooks around me at the moment, but I still remember this one dream. This happened a billion years ago. I dreamt that I was rollerblading along the lake. Like, I live along Lake Ontario. So I was rollerblading along, and I was rollerblading with this bird that I remember when I was a kid. I had this bird doll, and it was like a pink ostrich with red stripes around its neck and around its feet.
Oh, interesting. It wasn't like one of those marionette things that was popular when we were young, was it? That's what I'm envisioning.
Yeah, it is
Like
like
they're really feathery.
it was really feathery, but that just let go of the strings. It was more like a doll.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had forgotten about that doll completely. Like, I completely forgot about it, but it came into me in a dream. And I was rollerblading with this bird doll. And, and I'm in my 30s. So when it happened, and it's like, oh my God, there was that doll. And I woke up thinking about a toy that I had completely forgotten. So I quickly doodled it down, and I've doodled a lot of things from my dreams since. It's fun. It's really fun. I have weird dreams anyway. Very.
I do too. And I have wanted to keep a dream journal next to my bed, but it's hard to sketch those ideas when there, if there's someone in the bed with you and turning on the light, like I can't sketch in the dark.
Yeah.
It means that you have to save those sketches until you're out of bed
Or you
and
can
not turning on lights.
sneak out of bed and just like quickly get into the living room and just quickly draw them out.
That's not a bad idea.
Mhm.
That's not a bad idea. You know, to try to get some of these vivid dreams down. I know there's been some people that have tried to put apps together that compile dreams and see if people have trending dreams, but I've never seen that successfully happen. I remember hearing an interview a while ago where somebody had done that, but the app never like launched.
Uh,
Because it would be interesting to see if you could correlate events to dreams people were having.
yeah, well, could be. I always think that you're dreaming of, when you dream, you're dreaming of it's basically like problem solving. It's sort of like
True.
yeah, it's sort of like scrubbing your brain and trying to figure out, how your day went that day. There must have been something with to do with my youth or toys and
Or
recreation.
birds, since you draw so many birds. Perhaps it was trying to talk to you.
I can actually draw a bird blindfolded. I tried it once.
Well, the birds you draw have so much character. Do you have any characters like that you can trace back to when you were a kid that you drew? Like, are any of those bird characters that have sort of been living in your subconscious since you were first drawing? Because I have a couple characters that I have.
I grew up on a old farm, so like the farm wasn't around anymore, but though we had chickens, and so I was amongst chickens a lot. But I used to, when I was a kid, I was like a typical girl. I drew horses. I don't know a single person, a single female who didn't draw horses when they were a kid. So I guess that was typical. But I used to have this one chicken though that I can recall that used to like to sit on my lap, and I used to draw it as a child.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't recall. We had budgies.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but I used to draw a lot of mostly animals. I did draw. I'm just trying to remember because I used to draw in my mom's books. I got in trouble for that. I used to draw,
I can imagine.
Pardon me?
I can imagine.
Oh, I got in trouble. Yeah, I used to draw. My mom used to have a huge list of cookbooks. And the end pages, they're always blank. I used to sneak those out and draw on them and then just slickly put them back, thinking she would not notice.
As kids, you think there's so many things your parents don't notice, but they notice it all.
Oh, they notice.
They know. And so you now are working on your, what is it, McFeathers series? Is that, tell a little bit about that, because that's kind of a venture that you're working on.
Yeah, PA McFeathers, I'm trying to basically start my own line of licensed wear. So there's the Clover Girls, which are basically, that's my main one, the Clover Girls. And they're basically female deities, like they're female goddesses that are mostly subconscious. These are women that they are the female goddesses that are basically our true selves. They're a little they're a little mischievous. Sometimes they're very nature loving. They just basically want to do like they're the ones that sort of like tug at you when you want to do anything but what you're doing, basically. They're the ones that are sort of like trying to get at you. And yeah, that's why they have horns and they look a little devil-like. But
yes, Troy always says I have two devils on my shoulder that just egg me on. He says I don't have any angels. They just sort of say, do it. Yeah, do it.
Well, I figured that we've been like that since like long before the Bronze Age. So like there was a time when ancient man was free to do whatever he wanted, and when the Bronze Age came, when we were starting to become more civilized and there was bureaucracy. That's when we started to get anxieties and and stuff like that. So that's what the women are. They're to remind us. They're to remind us of a time when we basically could do the hell what we wanted. So that's what the Clover Girls are all about.
Well, that's a cool idea. And you also, were you working on, is that part of the pinups that you were doing as well?
Yes, that's what they are. They're the pinup calendar, and now I'm thinking about doing a set of trading cards, but I got to find somebody who can do trading cards very well, like hockey cards, something like that. I know there's a company in England that does them, but I'm going to see if I can get the calendar out first.
Yeah, baby steps.
Baby,
I mean, as we've talked before, you have to figure out what projects you're going to be able to do with the time that, I mean, we're not trying to make it sound dire with the time you have left, but you really start to think about, what do I want to do with my work?
Yeah.
I mean, you have your day job work. I hate to make it sound like, the stuff I do day to day is just my day job, since I mostly do picture books, but you start thinking about, I want to do projects that I initiate and do. Yeah. And that becomes more and more important with the time that you have left. I mean, everybody has a limited amount of time, even if you're 20, but I think when you're 20, you don't really think about it in the same way.
No, you don't. I think, and I think what happens is that it's because you haven't aged in your industry long enough to actually figure what you basically want. You might have a vision, but until you've basically made a couple of mistakes and maybe actually work your vision, that's when you really know what you want. It's a starting point in your 20s, but you don't really realize what your true goal is, I think, until you hit your mid 30s. In my case, because I used my 20s for education. I started late, you could say. I started my vision late, not until I got out of storyboarding, basically. So, because I was happy as a storyboard artist, and then the competition just got really strong, and so I had to, I basically had to turn on a dime and think in a different direction. And I remember somebody saying, and I didn't take it serious at the time, but I remember somebody saying that you should treat your personal projects as if they're your business projects as well, because one of these days you're going to have to rely on them.
Yes, and develop your own intellectual property and that sort of thing is really important.
Really, and I didn't take that serious until it was, until I really had to. So yeah, that's a little nugget I wish I actually did take serious when somebody told me that.
Do you find your sketchbooks are an outlet too? I mean, that's what I use sketching for. That's why I love urban sketching and that sort of thing, is I kind of use that as not only a playground, but it's something that I'm not doing for a client. Like, there's something liberating about just doing artwork for no monetary gain. It's just, you're doing it for for fun. It's sort of for your mental health.
Oh God, yes. One of my favorite things to do if I'm having like a really bad day, I'll take a sketchbook and a small pack of cheap colored pencils and my drawing instruments, and I'll just go over to our local coffee shop, and they know me. They let me sit there for hours and just drink their coffee and tea and just draw. And the neat thing is, I think everybody who sits in this coffee shop has the same mindset. Because everybody's
there drawing or writing or doing some sort of, it's almost like a meditation or some sort of vibrational energy, everybody there kind of putting up the same sort of creative vibes.
Yeah, it's just, well, the town I'm in is it's a university town, so I guess that says it all by itself.
Uh-huh.
So I just draw, and people are there trying to get their, they're trying to get their thesis ready, or figuring out, like, doing their homework, or trying to get a pitch together or anything like that. Everybody's in the same boat. So it's nice to just sit there and just, absorb the intellect and just sort of change your thought and start and putting it down on paper. It's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
I wish everybody had a coffee shop like the one I have. It's a great place.
It does sound, I hope to see it one day. We hope to visit Hamilton soon.
Yeah.
Check it out and see. 'Cause I don't think we've been in downtown Hamilton. I mean, we've been to Hamilton, but not.
We have a great, we have an arts fair. It's like, it's called the Super Crawl, and it's September, the first weekend in September. Unfortunately, it's so well known in Ontario that when it hits, it's packed. Like, people from all over Southern Ontario and Toronto go to the Super Crawl, and there's everything from fine art, illustration, cartooning. There's life drawing. There's religious art. There's music. There's dance. There's circus arts. There's food, culinary arts. It's huge, and it's basically the creme de la creme of Hamilton just goes and shows off their wares, and it's just amazing.
Wow, that sounds really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to see it sometime. So to wrap up, are there any special materials you like, or you said you kind of just anything you can sketch on, you sort of do sketch on, or there's some particular things that you like to sketch with? Like, well, what are your favorite tools?
Ideally, I like anything that's very smooth.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I am enjoying a little bit of a tooth on things, but normally it's usually a nice smooth paper, not coated or anything, just nice smooth paper. I prefer a heavy Bristol, something heavy Bristol, because if I really draw something I really like, I'll either rip it out of the sketchbook, or you take it out like a nice small piece of Bristol, and I'll clean it up and I'll finish it. Lately, though, I've been using our printer to actually take drawings from my sketchbook, I clean them up, and then I print them onto Bristol and then paint them. But I've been doing that just recently. That's a brand new thing. Mm-hmm. But I have my grandfather's he had a pencil that held a 9-point lead, and he used to use that to label his grapes and some of his fruit trees with it. I remember seeing it always in his pocket when I was a little girl.
Wow.
So now I have it, and I found 9-point colored pencil leads for it.
That's really interesting.
I've been using that for a very long time.
Like the magic pencil.
Pardon me?
It's like the magic pencil.
It's like the magic pencil. Like,
speaking of which, go finish your sentence, and then I have a question.
Well, my grandfather bought it in the 50s, so it's been around for a while.
So what are you affected? You work in color pencils a lot, and there was quite a kerfuffle this week. Is that the right word? Where there's a type of color pencil, is it the Faber? What kind is it? The Prism? It's like a Prism color eraser version. What is it?
It's called Colorase. It was a pencil that was the colored pencil of choice for animators. They've discontinued it.
Are they discontinuing it just individually, or just, I was confused exactly what was happening, or you just can't buy, but you can buy packs, or are they getting rid of all of them? Like, what is the...
What I heard was they were cutting back on the number they were making. So I think what is happening is that they're probably not going to be sold in, this is what I've figured out. They're probably not going to be sold in stores.
Mm-hmm.
Probably companies like Disney or Warner Brothers and that, they'll probably be able to still get them if they use them. I don't think Disney uses them. Sheridan College used them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they still use them, but they don't do any. I don't think they do any old 2D animation anymore. So I think because everything's basically done on a Cintiq or,
Mm-hmm. It really has been difficult for getting some traditional materials lately because of obviously there's digital. Most animation houses, everything's digital from beginning to end. So it's mostly people that work in sketchbooks or work traditionally that use these types of colored pencils or certain types of paints. They're not making any more, I believe. Isn't there some sort of Liquitex paint they stopped making a couple of years ago that I know several artists that used a lot? And I don't know if it just paint especially is extremely expensive now because of the the different pigments that are used.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know, obviously anything with color, you have special pigments you have to get, and there's a lot of costs to those beyond just the manufacturer. And I don't know if that's kind of an issue that they're dealing with, the wood in the pencils. Obviously, if there's a paper shortage, one wonders if there is also wood shortages for pencils and it's just really expensive. I'd be curious to hear more about what's behind it.
Yeah, I don't know what the reason is behind it. You can't always blame it on that ship in the Suez. So I don't know. As for paint and inks, because I know there's an ink shortage too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's I don't understand it because the majority of paints, even artist grade paints, they're synthetic. They're not made with real cobalt anymore or real cadmium. They're all synthetic now. So I don't know what the reason is. If anybody could answer that, let us know.
Well, when I heard about, I've never been, and this is why your sketches fascinate me, because you love working color pencil, and I have never been a fan of using it. I love working more like I do very rough sketches in pencil or ballpoint pen and ink, and then add watercolor or whatever. So I'm fascinated by friends that sketch a lot with color pencil, and hearing how much people love these color pencils made me want to try one, because I've never used that particular kind. I always found Prismacolors really frustrating because I don't feel like I press down that hard, but I always break the tips on those things.
Yeah.
And I found out I was holding them wrong. That's probably what it was. I don't know how to use them.
Well, do you use your pens, like when you hold your pencil, do you hold it closer to the?
Well, see, that's a thing. I heard you have to use a color pencil more like with your hand flat and sort of sketching like this than like the direct attack, which breaks the tip.
Yeah. Usually, like if I draw on a larger sheet of paper, I don't hold the pencil close to the point. I hold it further down the pencil. Yeah, and I just basically it's more of a looser move.
Exactly. I was just using them wrong.
I think it has to do also, you don't want to get arthritis in your hands. So you tend to hold the pencil differently.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But I've stopped using Prismacolor. Occasionally we'll pick up the Prismacolor to draw with it. But since, like I said, since my grandfather bequeathed me his pencil, his farm pencil, I've been using these colored, like they're the colored leads, and these leads come from Japan.
Nice.
So they're nice and soft. And the nice thing about them is I don't have to sharpen the pencil. There's no wood, so I don't have to worry about a wood shortage. And they stay nice and pointy. So
that sounds. You'll have to send me a picture of this, and I'll post it in the post of your grandfather's pen, because it sounds very special.
It looks like a farmer's pen or pencil. It's great.
Oh, that's really awesome. Yeah.
It was made in Canada too. Nothing is made here. So
Well, I think we could probably talk forever, but we probably should wrap it up. What are your socials so people can find and see your beautiful drawings of birds and women and fairies and all sorts of flights of fancy that I love? I think that I've always enjoyed sort of the concepts that you come up with for your artwork. It's
Well,
it's
I'm on Instagram and I'm on Facebook and Twitter.
as at what's the handle?
I think it's for the Instagram one, I think it's Patricia Ann Lewis-MacDougall at Twitter, or not Twitter, excuse me, Instagram. And I know my handle on Facebook is Patricia Ann.
Mm-hmm. And then you have Patreon.
I have Patreon, though I haven't really worked my Patreon. My Patreon's free. I'm not charging anybody to go on my Patreon because I don't use it. I don't do it as much. As soon as I actually start blogging more on it, I'll start charging. So it's free at the moment. And I think that one's Pat Ann, isn't it?
I think so. I think because I follow that. So yes, everybody take a look at her work, and we also have some projects coming up that we're working on together. So
Yeah,
keep your eyes for that. Yeah. And thanks so much for letting me talk to you. It's been fun kind of hearing about your journey and your process. So
yeah,
thanks so much.
this was fun. We should do it again.
Definitely. Oh, I'm sure we will.